Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Tyler Herro, Nikola Jovic make a case for key roles in Heat's rotation. Finding themselves in a world of trouble in overtime after squandering a 15-point lead in the second half, the Miami Heat used two big performances from Tyler Herro and Nikola Jovic to survive a scare in Atlanta and defeat the Hawks in double overtime 117-111 Tuesday night. After a Bam Adebayo goaltend on a DeJounte Murray layup tied the game at 101, the Heat went to their best player Jimmy Butler to close the game. Most of the time in clutch games for Miami where the Heat have the last shot, Erik Spoelstra usually lets his team push the pace so the defense won't set up after a timeout. But after the goaltend, Spoelstra had to draw up a play with the clock stopped, and the possession that followed was arguably the worst final possession for the Heat this season. To close out regulation, Caleb Martin, who was 0-for-9, set a screen for Butler, who was going to his right. The problem was that Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, and Nikola Jovic were standing in the same corner. Butler was crowded by Hawks defenders and the ball ended up in Herro's hands, who had no choice but to hoist a deep three that missed. The Heat's offensive woes began to bleed into overtime and suddenly they found themselves down 105-101. Desperately needing a bucket, Nikola Jovic hit a huge three-pointer to cut the lead to 1. After Murray missed a three, Jovic secured the rebound and found Haywood Highsmith for the game-tying three. The development of Jovic has been a bright spot for the Heat, who once went from playing spot minutes due to injuries and being out of the rotation to now being in closing lineups and making crucial decisions with the ball in his hands. Even after the big Jovic sequences, the Heat could not close the deal in the first overtime after another Butler possession where the ball was glued to his hands late into the shot clock ended in a turnover. Butler was having a very rough overtime, and someone else needed to run the show and close the deal for Miami in double overtime. The Heat decided to run the offense through Herro, and it worked out. After drawing a foul on Murray to get to the free throw line and sink two shots, Herro rejected a screen from Adebayo, got into the lane and hit a floater to give the Heat a two-possession lead. With 1:10 left in the second overtime period, the Heat again went to the Herro-Adebayo pick-and-roll. After Herro dumped the ball to Adebayo, who found himself with two on him near the foul line, Adebayo passed to Jovic on the baseline, who hit a driving reverse layup to make it a 115-109 lead for the Heat to seal the game. Both Herro and Jovic have had their ups and downs over the season, but ever since Herro returned from injury, one constant has remained the same, and that has been Herro and Jovic being in closing lineups in crunch time. Ever since joining the Heat in 2019, Herro has proven on multiple occasions that he deserves to be in the closing lineup for Miami, and it's safe to say that Herro will continue to be in the fourth quarter of clutch games. The question has been who will close with Butler, Adebayo, and Herro. As we approach the play-in and NBA playoffs, Spoelstra has put his trust in Jovic to be in those lineups, and so far he has answered the call. If the Heat find themselves in a few more tight games to end the year and Jovic continues to have moments as he did Tuesday night and against the Pacers on Sunday, it would be hard not to include Jovic as not only someone who receives playoff minutes, but also someone who is a prime candidate to be in close games. NBA analyst says Miami Heat should draft Zach Edey, there's a place for him. Zach Edey showed what he is capable of on a big stage during the recently completed NCAA tournament, and NBA observer Nick Wright said the Miami Heat should select the Purdue University big man in the upcoming 2024 NBA draft. This season, Edey was named the Associated Press Player of the Year for a second straight time, making him the first back-to-back winner since Ralph Sampson won it 3 times in a row for the University of Virginia in the early 1980s. Though Purdue lost to the University of Connecticut in the 2024 championship game on Monday, Edey was excellent in 2 Final Four games. The 7'4" center scored 20 points with 12 rebounds in a semi-final win against North Carolina State University before scoring 37 points and grabbing 10 rebounds in the final loss to UConn. After a stunning first-round loss for Purdue in the 2023 NCAA tournament, Eddie averaged 29.5 points per game in 6 tournament contests this year, the second most in history. His game may not be ideally suited for today's NBA, but it is hard to argue with his production at the collegiate level. It could make him attractive to a team that wants to find use for his unique talents, and the Heat have a coaching staff that certainly seems capable of doing that. In a recent mock draft posted before the Final Four, ESPN had Eddie as the number 13 overall pick to the Portland Trail Blazers. Miami is unlikely to be selecting that high. But before turning their full attention to the 2024 NBA draft, the Heat have plenty of business to tend to the rest of this season. With just 4 regular season games remaining, including a tilt Tuesday night against the Atlanta Hawks, the Heat are trying to improve their playoff positioning and avoid competing in the play-in round for a second straight year. With a 43-35 record, they are in 8th place in the Eastern Conference, 1.5 games behind the Indiana Pacers for 6th place and the conference's final guaranteed playoff spot. Miami Heat receive troubling injury update ahead of playoffs. The Miami Heat have their work cut out for them if they want to make the 2024 NBA playoffs. Currently, in 8th place in the Eastern Conference, Miami's path to the postseason could very well include a trip to the NBA play-in tournament again. Last year, the Heat earned the number 8 seed and steamrolled their way through the postseason. They defeated the Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks and Boston Celtics before being defeated by the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. While they would prefer to avoid having to repeat that, the Heat at least know they are capable of finding success no matter what challenges lie ahead. However, their road to the postseason has gotten more complicated with the loss of sharpshooter Duncan Robinson. Robinson has not looked like himself recently as he has been dealing with a back injury. The injury cost him 5 games near the end of March, but he was able to return to the lineup on March 31st. He played in 5 games but didn't look right. His 3-point shot was off, as he went 6 of 26 from long distance in those contests. Evidently, something was still not right with his back, as Robinson is heading back to the sidelines. Heat beat writer Ira Winderman provided the update on Robinson, and it is not an encouraging one. Robinson is set to go back to the drawing board on how to deal with the injury as things worsened on Sunday in the loss to the Indiana Pacers. Able to play only 12 minutes against the Pacers, the Heat are now going to be without one of their key rotation players for the foreseeable future. With only 4 games remaining in the regular season, there is a chance that we won't see Robinson back on the court this season. Right now, the goal for the Heat should be getting Robinson healthy enough that he can contribute in NBA play-in tournament games. There is still a chance Miami can avoid that, but they will need a lot of help as the loss to Indiana dropped Miami to 1.5 games behind them in the standings, with the Philadelphia 76ers occupying the number 7 seed. And you, fan, what do you think of the situation of Duncan Robinson? Leave your opinion in the comments.